The President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, cancels 40% of internally generated revenues deduction from universities. Now the news in focus. There had been a widespread condemnation of policies of automatic deduction of 40% from the internally generated revenues of the federal universities. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has announced the cancellation of the automatic deduction of 40% from the university's internally generated revenues, particularly federal universities. He says the policy implementation is ill-timed, and Mr. President spoke on Friday at the ongoing 75th Founders' Day ceremony of the University of Ibadan. He was represented by the Minister of Education, Tahir Mamman. In his speech as a visitor to the university, Mr. Tinubu pledged his commitment to the reform of the nation's education sector as the bedrock for national development. Now, Mr. Tinubu said the 40% IGR automatic deduction policies stands cancelled. This is not the best time for such policies since our universities are struggling. This development was confirmed by Premium Times by multiple sources at the ongoing event, including the Lagos Zonal Coordinator of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, Adelaja Odukoya. Mr. Odukoya is a professor of political science and the dean of the Faculty of Social Science at the University of Lagos. Now, the Sultan condemns policies. Now, earlier in the welcome address, the Chancellor of the University and Sultan of Sokoto, Saud Abubakar, had condemned the policies, citing the multidimensional challenges confronting the universities. Now, Mr. Abubakar was said to have pleaded with the authorities to rescind the decisions, saying that the policy had the potential of grounding the university system. Now, speaking about the policy, a leaked memo addressed to the heads of the universities recently by the Nigerian government noted that the commencement from November, universities will have 40% of revenues generated internally and disposed in their accounts will be deducted automatically by the government via the Treasury single account. A copy of the memo addressed to the Office of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Abuja by the Revenue and Investment Department of the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation in the Federal Ministry of Finance notified the institution of automatic deduction of 40% of its internally generated revenues by the government. Now dated 17th of October, which reference R&I /2045/T/252 and signed by the Director of Revenue and Investment Department, Felix Ogundiro. The later noted that the decision, which affects all partially funded government agencies and parastatals, including universities, is in line with the provision of Sector 62 of Finance Act 2020. Now, the memo reads in part, it is important to emphasize that this policy of 40% auto-deduction of gross internally generated revenue in line with the Finance Circular Reference Number FMF-BNP/others/IGR/CRF/12/2021 dated 28th of December 2021, limiting the budgetary agencies or parastatals to not more than 50% of their gross internally generated revenues and the remittance of 40% of the remaining 50% to the sub-recurrent account. Now, while all statutory revenue lines like tender fees, contractors' registration fees, disposal of fixed assets, rent on quarters, etc. shall be remitted 100% to the sub-structural account, the memo instructed universities and other affected agencies of the government to align their budgets to the new realities. Now, ASU kicks. Now, shocked by the policy, the national president of the ASU, Emmanuel Osodeke, told Premium Times that his union could not understand what the government meant by IGR in universities. He said universities globally are not revenue-generating institutions, but that what they generate are only the cost of service rendered and items provided for students. Now, Mr. Osodeke, a professor who described the new policy as the government's attempts to strangle the poor, said there is no revenue generated by any universities. He said, what is internally generated revenue? As far as I'm concerned, we don't have an IGR, so it's zero. What the students are paying is the cost of items like ID cards, medical health insurance, books, lab coats, among others. So there are no IGRs in universities, so it's zero. You see, this is what we have been talking about. Is the university an agency established to generate funds for the government? So as far as I'm concerned, we will look at it. Let them define what the idea of IGR. As far as ASU is concerned, the funds are meant for items. That is why they call them charges. Now, the union presidents and universities have been struggling to provide basic amenities like water, electricity, and necessary infrastructure for teaching and learning. He said many universities receive less than 120 million annually from the federal government as funding support, but they only spend more than 1 billion naira annually on electricity. If you talk to the management of the Universities of Ibadan or the Obafemi Awolowo University or any other one, they will tell you that they roughly get 15 million naira a month from the government to run. What would that be able to pay for electricity bill? So it is sad where we are hearing today. This is an attack on the university system, and I pray that something will happen and change this narrative. How can you say you're going to collect those charges that the universities collect to take care of their students? Things like this never even happened during the military. If their children are in the public universities, would they ask for such a thing? So a lot of people are actually talking about that, especially the Sano president, Mr. Muhammad Ibrahim, who said he has spent about 30 years within the university system and said he never knew anything called the IGR in the universities. So students, it seems like there's going to be a new billing as probably school fees will actually be on the hike. And even he also went ahead to say education is a social service for God's sake. Universities are institutions of learning where teaching, research, and community development activities are carried out. Now, also moving others to the Congress of Nigerian Universities Academics, the president, national president, Nii, also said that the universities already have so much to contend with and suggests that the policies should be rejected. Now, on position, or rather our position is that universities in this country are already having a lot to deal with respect of funding issues. Effecting this policy this time that the universities are yet to achieve financial stability will cripple them, he said. Now, another person, Mr. Somonu, a senior lecturer of the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, made comments to this. Do you think that school fees is about to get on the hike, or do you think we're beginning to have that feeling that we're going to start paying for more things than we expected? Because from this whole 40% IGR, I feel there's a lot of increase that will be happening within the university sector, as probably there will be a hike in school fees if the ASU, SANU, and every other academic union concerned doesn't get to work at this point in time. Do also drop a comment on what you think about this information on InfoGist TV. Thank you.